28 people dead. The first call came in after 9:30 this morning, and then all hell broke loose in the beautiful town of Newtown.
Breaking news this morning coming out of Colorado. The town of Aurora, Colorado, which is about 12 miles to the east of Denver, is a scene of a shooting this morning.
Good evening, everyone. The reaction of so many people today was, oh no, not again. Another high school, Columbine High in Littleton, Colorado, this time on the edge.
14 people confirmed shot, murdered by the shooter or shooters in this particular case. The police earlier said 14 injured. Now Kyung La getting new information. 17 people injured. We don't know.
The attitudes surrounding gun laws are nowhere near what they used to be. When the Second Amendment was created, it was envisioned as being the best way to create a well-regulated militia.
In a second, first let me read you what the Second Amendment says. It says, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Because back then they had militias, and they didn't want the United States government to take over all of the militias that they had. The point was militias.
There are far fewer personal liberties as the states were required to keep track of who had guns and had the right to inspect them in private homes. The history behind this goes all the way back to the first gun back in the 15th century.
The first gun was considered to be the cannon, and many European countries promptly armed their navy's ships with cannons after its invention. Personal guns, however, grew popular around the same time that America began to be colonized. Settlers brought guns over to the New World for a variety of purposes, such as hunting, protection, and to show techno-superiority. It wasn't until the French and Indian War, and then the colonial uprising and the Revolutionary War, that guns were considered a necessity. There was a large benefit of having a trained and armed population.
The NRA, that is the largest gun lobbyist in America today, was formed in 1871 to teach Americans better marksmanship, but has widely evolved from there. The first piece of gun legislation was passed in 1934 by President Roosevelt to combat the rise of gang violence with the use of Tommy guns. Is the need for guns nowadays the same that it was when the Second Amendment was created, or is it just a way for citizens to feel safe or even to feel powerful? While some believe that owning a gun, or even keeping a gun in the home, may make one more safe, that is rarely the case. The people that die from accidental shootings are more than 3 times as likely to have had a firearm in their home as those who don't.
Why wouldn't we want to make it more difficult for a dangerous person to get his or her hand on a gun? Why wouldn't we want to close the loophole that allows as many as 40% of all gun purchases to take place without a background check? Why wouldn't we do that?
Even more disturbing, people who have access to firearms are at twice the risk of homicide and more than 3 times the risk of suicide compared to those who do not own or have access to firearms, according to the Center for Injury Research and Prevention. But many politicians still suggest that increased gun ownership is a solution to solving the gun violence epidemic in America.
If they had guns, he wouldn't be around very long. I can tell you there wouldn't have been much damage.
Out of all advanced countries, America still has some of the most lax gun policies and some of the most passionate advocates to keep it that way.
Surrounding a group of gun-carrying activists, brazenly flexing their legal right to bear arms.
This is probably the safest corner in San Antonio right now.
They call themselves Open Carry Texas.
But in reality, the majority of American people are in favor of heightened gun control, especially increased background checks for those who want to purchase a gun.
Biggest show of the 5 our team attended. After wandering the floor, our producer spots this gentleman carrying a semi-automatic rifle on his shoulder. Asking price, $1,200.
All right, you want to walk out and I'll pay you? Sure. Let's do it.
The seller takes our offer, $1,150. From first conversation to settling on a price takes just 70 seconds. Out in front of the convention center, the money's exchanged, and the rifle, complete with case, is handed over. Our team walks away with a variation of the same weapon used in the deadly Sandy Hook shooting. Again, no questions asked.
Case. There's the gun, and there's...
In countries such as Australia, after a mass shooting that killed 35 people in 1996, the Conservative government enacted laws banning automatic and semi-automatic rifles and pump-action guns and initiated a nationwide gun buyback program. Switzerland, frequently cited as a country where widespread gun ownership makes people safer, has stricter gun regulations than the U.S. The Swiss government has placed limits on gun ownership and makes gun owners renew their permit 14 times a year. Many wonder why America has not followed suit, one of those people being President Obama.
Right now, 90% of Americans, 90%, support background checks that will keep criminals and people who have been found to be a danger to themselves or others from buying a gun.
While many gun control advocates believe that increased gun laws and background checks can reduce the amount of deaths in America, there are others who oppose
We
this.
meet nearly 24 well-armed supporters, from retirees to children, men and women, gun lovers of every race.
My house was robbed by 5 guys about 4 months ago. The police did nothing. So therefore, I think it's my duty to protect my family. Crime really has no color.
Such as many Republican presidential candidates. These candidates have not only openly expressed their disagreement in the effectiveness of future gun law policies, but they have even stated how removing gun restrictions could potentially be more effective.
I think gun-free zones are a catastrophe. They're a feeding frenzy for sick people.
Citizens were disarmed by their government in the late 1930s, and by the mid-1940s, Hitler's regime had mercilessly slaughtered 6 million Jews and numerous others whom they considered inferior. Through a combination of removing guns and disseminating deceitful propaganda, the Nazis were able to carry out their evil intentions with relatively little resistance.
They disarmed the people. That was the point. Noah Webster said, when he was talking about tyranny, that the people of America would never suffer tyranny because they are armed.
Many people base their opinions on what is stated in the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment also states that these guns must be well regulated.
With more mass shootings in 2015 than days in the year, it is clear that our current gun control policy is not working. Americans no longer feel safe in their own country due to the frequent availability of firearms and politicians' blatant refusal to stop such violent crimes caused by guns. People are calling for politicians to stop offering prayers and start offering solutions, and to no longer be the pawns of the NRA along with other pro-gun lobbyists. America will never be a country that bans guns, but hopefully it can become a country that has better control over who can access one. Looking at the increase in public shootings over the past few years, it seems almost obvious that increasing gun control would both save lives and make America feel safer as a whole.